Thank you very much for joining us for the launch of our first feasibility call within the Ignite Hub. We've actually run quite a few of these feasibility calls in the past, but on a previous hub that we ran called Sustain, which was focused more unilaterally on the challenges of the steel industry itself, rather than the wider supply chain supporting steel-intensive manufacturing. This first call is called Financing Steel Circularity and Servitization, which is quite a significant departure from the core activities of the hub for good reason. So I thought the first thing that would be important to do is to just talk through who's involved, what we're all doing to a degree, what our current research focus is, and how we see the potential applicants of this call being complementary. So the hub is led by a management team, including myself as director, Professor Lenny Coe at Sheffield University as a deputy director, Professor Claire Davis at Warwick University as a spoke director, and Professor Hongbao Dong at Birmingham University as a spoke director there as well. And this represents a range of expertise from metallurgy and digitization through to supply chain and operations management. We're supported by this fantastic operational team that we have in the room with us today, with the exception of Ellie, who is currently on maternity leave. And so as you go through the process of applying for this call, you may well be interacting with any number of both the management team or the operational team. So now that allows you to put some faces to the names for those who aren't on the call today. Okay, next slide, please. So I just wanted to explain briefly what a manufacturing hub is. So for those of you who aren't familiar, manufacturing hubs are the largest and longest single investments that the Engineering and Physical Sciences Research Council, part of UK Research and Innovation, fund. They are there to provide long-term flexible underpinning funding for a particular research challenge. And because of that, it's very difficult to chart a straightforward beginning, middle, and an end to these projects. We've run one before called Sustain that you can see down there at the bottom, which changed a lot in terms of the challenges that it had to face over the time that it was running. So you can think of this as behaving a lot more like an entity, although it's not actually a separate legal entity than a project. We have strong and robust governance processes and management processes, and we will allocate funding as and when to different priorities as the priorities within the sector or the challenges and opportunities within the sector change through time. So that means that this call, for example, is focused in an area outside of metallurgy or manufacturing specifically, and in a key and very important enabling innovative area, but that doesn't mean that that's what the next call or the call after that or the call after that will focus on. So as we run through, we'll be running a number of these calls, and they will be in response to the challenges that we discover as we go through our journey on this hub between now and 2032. It's really, really important for us that our initial investment that we have from UKRI, which is in excess of 11 million as a funder contribution, is really sounds like a lot of money, but in the context of the challenges that we're looking to try to address is actually relatively small. And so it's really important that we come together as a community, and that includes both the people who started the hub, but also those who we engage with through this feasibility process to look for greater sources of funding to take forward these areas of research. So these feasibility studies we would see as a platform to running on to bigger and greater things. Next slide, please. So an overview of the challenge that we're looking to try to address within the Sustain Hub and how this call relates to that. So starting at the top left-hand side of this slide, the steel industry has been extremely good for decades at producing new grades. And actually the pace of development of and improvement of properties and performance in use of these materials has been progressing significantly, even very recently. And that's driven competitive advantage within the industry. But as we move towards this sort of generic control chart in the center at the top there, what that does over that product evolution cycle is really reduce the margin for error that exists when you look to try to process that material and produce it right first time, every time. And so the room for maneuver there has got smaller and smaller and smaller. Most people would be aware just by casually looking at the news that obviously the UK is now headed for a significant change in strategy, looking at very much recycling intensive and a circular economy approach to managing the steel sector into the future. The challenge that we have there is that currently what happens is we basically chuck all of our end of life stuff into a giant pile, which if you cast your eye to the images at the bottom, generally is not just steel, but also things that are not steel, like clothes, soil, wires, other metallic fractions from other elements. And of course, all of those different grades that we've produced are also mixed together, meaning that we have the potential to circulate significant levels of unwanted elements back into the process without control. Particularly important to the steel industry are things like copper, nickel, tin, and chrome, because they're thermodynamically almost impossible to remove efficiently, and cost effectively once they're actually melted back into the product. And basically, if you do that, it means that we lose control of the process, and the greater levels of contamination that we have, the harder it's going to be to produce these alloys into the future, and then the harder it is going to be to use those as a platform to develop our manufacturing economy in the UK. So we've got to do something about this. And if we go to the next slide, what this program is effectively trying to do is a sort of a multifaceted approach. So again, starting in the same place on the chart, the first thing we need to try to do is reduce the number of grades that we've got. So if we're going to be aiming for these compositions, we need to have fewer to aim for, but still try to maintain the capability so far as we possibly can. And then in terms of the competitive advantage that we need to drive for product evolution, it's really going to be about how do we make these grades more resilient and more robust where we have contamination coming back into the process through increased levels of recycling and or circularity, which I appreciate for many people have different definitions. If we're going to do that effectively, we really have to stop chucking everything into a massive pile and recirculating some of these particularly problematic elements back into the steelmaking process. Because one, it degrades the steel quality, but also these are very valuable elements that could have very important uses in other sectors. And we need to make sure that those elements are effectively managed and put back where they need to be. Where this call starts to come in is in this bottom right-hand corner here. So really, if we're going to do this effectively, we have to manage the flow of elements. And that's a two-pronged approach. Part of that is I'll recirculate back to the beginning first. Part of that is going back through this recycling process, but effectively identifying areas where we can separate those elements out from that giant pile and send them to the sorts of grades that actually need those elements. So if you want to make a car body panel, for example, you need mostly iron and not much else. If you want to make an SMR, you're going to need a lot of iron, nickel, and chrome together. And we can significantly reduce our dependence on other sources of critical minerals if we just manage this flow properly. But perhaps more importantly, if you look at the bottom right-hand side, we also need to find a way of becoming better custodians of the material. And this is a much more disruptive approach and effective, I believe, approach to the circular economy, which is where we actually start to properly map the flows of materials. We start to get greater levels of traceability about where products are going, how they're being used, and then try to identify opportunities for servitization, where we can actually reuse or repair or remanufacture some of these products and then put them back into the economy again without going through a comparatively energy intensive recycling process. The problem with that in the context of this call is that steel is a massively capital intensive activity, and the idea that you would potentially look at servitizing the steel rather than looking at a single point of sale, for example, becomes extremely problematic purely from a cash flow perspective. So whilst we're doing a lot of work within the existing scoped program to try to address some of the technical challenges of how you produce better grades, how you do better sorting and separation at the end of life, and how you use the steelmaking process itself to control the compositions better, what we're not set up to do currently is look at how you might actually get the cash in the right place at the right time to do all of that. And that's where this call really comes in. And this is the expertise that we're really looking to the community to provide. So next slide, please. So the vision of the program is really split up into three different grand challenges. So sustainable demand for the products themselves. So how do we make those products more resilient? A resilient supply of those products. So how do we get those elements where they need to go and convert them through the steelmaking process better so that they deliver better outcomes? But most importantly for this call, the steel as a service model as well. So how are we going to be able to become better custodians of those materials and build sustainable business models around this that allow us to continue that level of environmental sustainability into the future? Next slide, please. So to do this, we've kind of got some clear vision. You can read these for yourself, so I won't go through them. We've got clear vision, ambition, and values. I guess I want to speak specifically to the values. So for us, it's a really important element of the cultural aspects of our hub that we are looking to collaborate for success, deliver open innovation approaches, and look at walking the walk as well as talking the talk in terms of the sustainable operation of the hub itself. And this really means that we're trying to cultivate and are cultivating a really warm, open and inviting culture that we want you to join and collaborate with us with. And hopefully, as I said at the beginning of this introduction, build a much more significant activity into the future. And then just coming right down to the bottom right-hand side, this whole concept of holistic sustainability by our definition, which basically means there's no point in being environmentally sustainability if you lose money and go out of business. And then you end up essentially, offshoring your responsibilities to other countries as a consumer. And so this concept of being both environmentally and financially and economically sustainable is absolutely critical to the success of the vision that we have. So the next slide, please. The last thing I really want to say in terms of the approach of the hub is that it's absolutely demand-led. So this is not something that the steel industry as producers is pushing out towards the rest of the manufacturing economy, hoping that they will apply. This is clearly something that's got to be driven by the demand that exists in the different sectors across the UK for us as consumers, ultimately through the OEMs and manufacturers and technology providers, and then down through to the material producers at the end of the day. So we've split this up as can be seen on the right-hand side, but this has basically helped us through these demand themes to establish three different clear research challenges that we're addressing as core within the hub. And of those three, you can clearly see that both research challenge 3, enablers of servitization and the maximization of the quality of steel use in application are key things that would be enabled by this the scope of this call. Next slide, please. So why would you bother applying for one of these grants? So for us, it's about joining a club. We really want to get these new insights, expertise and activities involved. Now, we appreciate that some of you on the call may not have ever interfaced with the steel industry before, but that's our job. Yeah. So we're able to help you engage with the industry. We can provide those contacts. We can get those face-to-face conversations happening so that you can familiarize yourself more with some of the challenges that I've only just had the opportunity to introduce. We have significant and strong links with the relevant government departments, so we have an impact on policy and future funding. And so I don't really talk to Treasury much at the moment, but if we get something important out of this, and they would definitely be next, potentially on the list. And access to our facilities as well. It's probably not so relevant for this call particularly, but I mean, just anybody who wants to join this club has the ability to collaborate with us and use some of the facilities that we've pulled together. And I've mentioned already that we are looking to try to drive this forward in terms of leverage. And so there is the opportunity, if you're successful, to access some of our follow-on funding, which would be to pump prime some of that more significant activity into the future. So we really want you to bring your new ideas and complementary expertise into the hub and strengthen what we do. Next slide. So I think I've covered this already, but this is mostly aligned to our Grand Challenge 3, so Steel as a Service. Next slide, please. In terms of the proposal alignment, we're really looking for the development of three key areas as a priority. The first is the development of financial instruments that might permit third-party capital to solve some of this cash flow issue that we have. We understand that these would have to be underpinned by important metrics in terms of the measurement, reporting, verification. For example, if we're looking at potentially financing a steel pipe that might move through several different potential applications, then we need to know where it is, what condition it's in, and this needs to be monitored so that the asset can be revalued as a function of time. So this is very important. Next slide. And then critically, like any financial product, we need to look at our ability to mitigate risk. So what would the way of being able to hedge these investments be? And what does the data that we're looking at really support that? How are we going to be able to make the instrument investable? And then the fourth area, of course, is that we might come up with an ideal solution, an ideal instrument, but it might not be something that's necessarily FCA approved. And so what policy interventions might be required to actually deliver the solution in reality once we've identified one? Okay, so I think that's the end of my contribution. And I'd like to invite, I think it's Irish first. Is that right? Yeah. So Irish is, I'm very grateful that she's joined us today because she's a previous recipient of one of our feasibility studies funding packages in our previous hub, Sustain. She works now as PDRA in the University of Birmingham, but we funded her originally to do some work on novel decarbonisation of iron-making technologies. And I think Irish is going to talk to us a little bit about her experiences. Thank you.
Yes, hello. Hello, everyone. So yeah, my name is Irish, and I'm going to present you more or less my journey. My journey started in 1994 when I was born in the beautiful country of Portugal. And then in 2017, I finished my integrated master's degree as well in Portugal, in Porto, where I'm from. In 2022, I finished my PhD. So my PhD was mainly, so the title is PhD in Advanced Materials and Processing, but I worked on composites, metallic composites with carbon nanotubes. So not related with steel at all. And then I turned to steel when I came here after my PhD. I came to the UK. I joined the University of Birmingham in a project called Intermetallic Dispersion Strengthened, so IDS steels for generation for nuclear applications in cooperation with UKA and was also part of Neuron, a big program around this. Then in 2025, end of 2025, it was when I was awarded the Sustain Feasibility Call 3. So this program, in this project, what I intended to do, I was one of the co-Is in the proposal, and what I intended to do, what I did, was design inert anodes for electrolysis of clean steel, so molten oxide and molten steel, molten salt electrolysis, and this was done with several companies and PIs and institutes, but also Metalysis. There was a venture Deep Science Ventures that is now a startup that is also collaborating with me, VTT in Finland, and I collaborated a lot with these institutions. And now, basically, what did that allow me to do? So after that ended, which was like last month, this allowed me to build a network around steelmaking and build an idea, develop this idea, which then led me to a PSRC impact acceleration account, which is trying to look at the commercial value of these anodes. In this case, I collaborated mainly with Metalysis. It's a company that uses molten salt electrolysis to produce metals in general. It depends on the demand, but they do iron as well. They do titanium, tantalum, for example, but basically they use carbon anodes, and that leads to CO2 emissions. And if you use inert ones, it will only lead to O2 emissions. Yeah, so then that also allowed me to do range application. So develop a little bit more of the idea to then do an range application, which I'm working on. And I'm also currently, since I built a network, and I think Sustain Ignite is such a nice community to be part of it, I am also tipping my toes into Ignite a little bit, not super official, but I've been also helping with the steel demand assessments through Ignite. And we did a workshop last week, 2 weeks ago, last week, with several companies, and I've been trying to be part of the Ignite as well, to be part of the community. So Sustain allowed me to progress a lot in my career, opened a lot of doors for me. it was very useful to help me build my idea better, explore this idea, look for further funding around it, build a network on skills, build a community, understand where the gaps of knowledge are and where we can, as academics, contribute to and collaborate with companies to try to solve their problems. And hopefully in the future, can click again, will be more to come, and we can continue to collaborate and do a lot more science to help these industries grow in steel, since it's um, a big area in this country. And that's me.
Thank you, Eric. You're very welcome in the Ignite community, slightly unofficial or not, I don't care. Number
Thank
one.
you.
The second thing is I'm starting to wonder what my own I'm assuming AI enhanced image of me in the lab might look like, and I'm wondering whether it might look too similar to how I actually look now, which would be ultra depressing. But anyway, sorry. Let's move swiftly on. Sarah, please. Thank you.
Okay. So some practical information about applying for the call. So this is our first feasibility study call for Ignite, and we have up to 3 awards at a maximum value of £55,000 each. So it's a slightly larger amount available on Ignite compared to Sustain due to the inflation. And the 55k provided by Ignite is at 80%. So the 20% remaining on top of that will need to be covered by your academic institution. So that would be a 13k amount, which will take your total project amount up to about 68k. So that's what we're expecting. For eligibility, the call is open to all UK academics whose institutions are not currently involved with the Ignite project, and they're eligible to receive EPSRC funding. Unfortunately, it's not open to European or international academics. And also the existing partner institutions are only eligible if they are based in a department or a research group that is not currently involved in the hub. And they must not include investigators already funded through Ignite, so that we can grow the hub with new talent and new people. So that's the purpose of this as well. Next slide, please. So the process there, we're just showing there that the call opens today on the 14th of July. You can apply directly if you wish to, or we also have the opportunity to provide you with some surgeries if you'd like to interact with some of our expertise. So we're currently arranging the surgeries, and the dates are to be confirmed, but we're asking for expertise that we don't currently have within Ignite, so these people will be able to speak to you directly. So this is for the purpose of helping to build the bridges, and the surgeries are about you building your familiarity with the sector in order to strengthen your application. So we'll be arranging the surgeries with the Ignite senior management team as well, and these dates will be confirmed nearer the time. So you can obviously email us on the email there to express your interest of getting in touch with somebody. So you can actually apply directly if you prefer to without going through the surgery process. That's fine. We would probably encourage you to ask the questions that you have when you can. I think that would benefit both parties then as well, so we know what's coming and you know if you're on the right track for your application as well. So the applications will be received by 9 a.m. on the 13th of October is our deadline, and we plan to communicate the outcomes early December at the very latest. So next slide, please. So this is the similar information with the key dates on there. It's just to show that the evaluation of shortlisting after the 13th of October will probably be about mid-November. So we'll try and get the information out to you, like we say, as early as possible, but by mid-December at the latest.
A Christmas present.
Yeah, yes. And this for information, please scan the QR code. This will give you access to the website and the application pack. And also please note that we have an ED&I anonymous monitoring form that we'd be very grateful if you could fill in, if you could spend 2 minutes and send that back to us, because the EDI monitoring is quite an important factor with UKRI and EPSRC calls. So we try and adhere to that to the best that we can. So your information will be greatly received. Thank you.
Yeah, I mean, I think the other point on ED&I is just to return to the cultural point, which is that we're just trying to make the hub as inclusive as we possibly can. So, if there are things that we could do better to ensure that we do that more effectively, then we definitely want to know. And as we change our approach and try to enhance that element of our program as well, we need to have something that will validate whether or not we're doing a good or a bad job. So all of these things, none of these things are compulsory, but where people are willing to do it, it is incredibly important or incredibly helpful for us to have this information. So.